What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the Uncommon Mindset podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very, very special guest. Today, I'm joined by Hisham Tawfiq. I'll just give you a brief background on who Hisham is. Hisham is an American actor, best known for playing Dembe, part of the security detail, and very close friend to Raymond Reddington, who is played by James Spader in NBC's The Blacklist series. Hisham has served in the U.S Marines and has also served as a firefighter for 20 years. He has starred in the BET film Gun Hill, Lights Out, Law and Order, and more. This guy is uncommon amongst uncommon individuals, and what an honor it is to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for that amazing introduction.
No worries, Hisham. Yeah, so I just want to start off by asking, what was your upbringing like? Because I know you grew up in Harlem, right?
Yes, so I grew up in Harlem in a very tight knit Sunni Muslim community. My father was an imam. My mother was a nurse. Um, I was homeschooled, so my father had kind of took over three vacant buildings in Harlem, and with the help of some Muslims from other communities in Ohio, Cleveland, Atlanta. Um, they renovated these buildings. So in the buildings, there was, a tea room, a vegetarian restaurant, a school, a mosque, office, and apartments with all of these beautiful Muslim families. So I came up in a very close knit Muslim community in Harlem.
Wow, that's incredible. What was that like? Did you ever go through any tough situations because of that? Because obviously I'm a Muslim myself too, and
Uh-huh.
I know what it's like when other kids can make fun of your religion and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, definitely, growing up in the '70s, I would say Islam might have, a lot of people knew about the Nation of Islam and Five Percenters, but I think that was kind of, especially after Malcolm X, because my father was a student of Malcolm X. So during the whole Malcolm X era, that's when I guess a large majority of people in New York City and African Americans were really getting exposed or learning about their history in Islam. Um, so the Muslim names weren't that common back then. So of course we got teased about our names. We got teased about our style of dress. We got teased about our kosher diets, and because I was raised also vegetarian in the beginning, so we didn't eat meat. Um, my father wasn't really an advocate of watching TV. So, when most kids can talk about, hey, did you see this
Mhm.
cartoon or this show? We just read books and listened to the radio. So there was a lot of bullying and teasing when and growing up, but because we weren't just a family on an island by ourselves, I think it helped that we had multiple families, so that when I came home, when I came in my building, I was greeted with "Assalamu alaikum, how are you?" And there's prayer and there's food and there's other Muslim kids like me, as opposed to if I was just the only Muslim living in an apartment in a building with 300 non-Muslims. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So even though we got bullied when we went out into the world, every time I came home, it was this safe haven. I was protected. I was loved. I was welcomed. But even in going outside and meeting all of those um, type of those unfriendly environments, the way I was raised was in a way that even though I got teased, I wasn't ashamed.
Mhm.
I was in, my father instilled in us this sense of pride, understanding our Black heritage, our Black culture, being proud to be Black, being proud to be Muslim. So I got teased, but I definitely wasn't ashamed. I was well informed and armed to fight back with the knowledge that he gave us at an early age.
Wow, that's incredible. It's amazing. And I know that I was watching an interview with you and you mentioned that you lost both of your parents when you were young, right? And you were the oldest of the siblings. I'm guessing obviously that must have been a very tough situation to go through. Do you want to maybe discuss anything about that?
Yeah, my mother was a victim of gun violence when I was 4 years old. So she passed away when I was four. And my father got ill when I was a senior in high school when I was about 18. So he did, after my mother passed away, he did remarry. So I did have a stepmother, but then she moved away after my father passed away. So I was the oldest of five brothers. And even though we were kind of alone in a sense we weren't, because again, I was living in the building surrounded by um, people who really loved us because my father was the imam. So I was taken care of in a sense, but I was parentless. So there was a lot of guidance, a lot of things that I missed by not having parents. But it was, he couldn't give me everything. My mother and him couldn't give me everything that I could. Well, I won't say that. They gave me a lot of things that I didn't realize at the time, but there were definitely tools that they gave me that helped me navigate throughout life. Now, yes, there are certain things that I missed out on. Nothing could replace having your mother and father, but I think I did much better than other people who didn't have parents to give them a lot of the things that my mother and father gave me.
Of course, yeah. No, I'm so sorry to hear that, and you have definitely, the things you've accomplished, more than 1% of the world. So this is incredible to see. And I want to ask as well, when did you and like why did you get into the Marines?
So there was like I said, my father passed away when I was a senior in high school. And initially, I had dreams of going to college. But when he passed away, I really didn't have any guidance as far as filling out the college applications. So I was kind of left floating. And there was a period of time where I found myself kind of lost, getting in trouble, working dead end jobs. And one day I just woke up and I was like, let me join the service. Like it was no thought into it. I didn't talk to anyone about it. Um, I never even really wanted to join the military. I had dreams as a kid of being a pilot, um, but I didn't think in military terms. I just wanted to fly planes. Um, and like I said, I just woke up one morning and some angel tapped me on my shoulder and was like, hey, you need to get out of Harlem, go away, reset, and kind of, refresh and reset. And that's what I did. There was, like I said, there was no no guidance, no talk, nothing. I just woke up with this profound feeling that I needed to get away, and the military seemed like the right choice to make.
Wow. And was it tough to get into the Marines? Because I've heard a lot of stories of how tough it is actually to get in, right?
Yeah, the Marines, a lot of people in the Army or other branches of service might argue, but I would say the Marine Corps is definitely the toughest branch of service to be in. I would say next to the Navy SEALs.
Mm.
Um, the Marine Corps has the longest boot camp. um, but again, I was prepared for that through my upbringing in the mosque. Like I used to be a Boy Scout. I knew how to swim. I knew all my knots. I knew how to light campfires. Because I was the oldest, not only of my brothers, I was kind of the oldest in my community. So I was taught with discipline. I was taught how to lead, just watching my father being a leader. So whether I was in the Marine Corps, the fire department, or corrections, I was a squad leader in all of those jobs because they could tell that I just had leadership quality. So even though the Marine Corps did teach me things about perseverance and discipline and hard work, a lot of the foundation was already laid before I went into the Marine Corps.
Oh, yeah. There's one person that I listen to like all the time, and I really look up to is David Goggins, and I'm sure have you heard of him?
No.
Oh, he was a Navy SEAL, and he talks about going through Hell Week, and he went through 3 Hell Weeks in 1 year. Yeah, which is kind of crazy.
Wait, is he a motivational speaker?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I think I know who you're talking about. Why did he go through 3 hell weeks in 1 year?
I think the first one he failed it. The
Okay.
second one he, because of injuries, he had to drop out, and then he was like, "I need to do this," and then he done another one and he passed that one.
Yeah, my dream was, back growing up in the days we used to like graffiti and have these tag names. My tag name used to be SEAL. Like I really wanted to be a Navy SEAL, but I think when I did my research, the commitment to be a Navy SEAL was much longer than the commitment for the Marine Corps. So I
Hmm.
went the Marine Corps route, but I truly have a utmost respect for Navy SEALs.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, no, for sure. I have respect for all people who have, served, and it's incredible to talk to one now. um, I want to talk to you about the becoming a firefighter as well. What was the reason for that? Because I didn't hear it much, but I think like you came home one day and you saw something.
Yeah, so when I was in the Marine Corps, you have a lot of time to think and reflect. And in my thinking, I was like, hey, when I come home, I'm gonna get my driver's license. I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna get a job. I'm gonna take the police tests, correction tests, sanitation tests. I had drawn out this list of things I wanted to do when I came home.
Mm.
And when I came home, I started doing that. And when I came home, I found a flyer in my house about the fire department, and it was from an organization called the Vulcan Society. So the Vulcan Society is an organization of Black firefighters. And New York City Fire Department is probably the least diverse fire service in the country. So out of 10,000 firefighters, less than 2% were African American. So maybe 200 firefighters.
Mm.
So the Vulcan Society took it upon themselves to go out with their own money and time to speak to inner city kids, people of color, and try to educate them on careers in the fire department and joining. So when I found this flyer, it was like, hey, you could join the fire department. And I think it probably had like a Black firefighter on it. I was like, oh, wow. I never thought about being a firefighter, but that sounds interesting. And I just filled out that postcard and mailed it in, and they assigned me a mentor, and that person just kind of walked me through the steps of preparing for the written test, preparing for the physical test. And I took the test in 1992, and it's a very competitive test. And I got called for the job in 1996.
Wow.
So it wasn't on my list of things that I ever thought about doing. But when I heard about it and learned about it, it was definitely a job I wanted.
Yeah, it's amazing. And obviously you worked for 20 years being a firefighter. When did you actually get into acting?
So acting was always the through line. All throughout my life, I think from an early age, my father had introduced me to performing. Like I remember he used to make me do these karate moves they call katas, so I would have to perform them in front of the mosque and on stage at his lectures. So I got used to performing in front of a crowd that way. And then in high school, I fell in love with a poem in English class, and we had to perform it by Maya Angelou, Why the Cage Bird Sings. And I just felt empowered reciting this poem in front of the class.
Mm.
And then originally I started playing football in high school. I got injured. So I started doing African dance, and I fell in love with the African drum. So I started doing dance. I actually went to Paris and London and Brazil doing African dance. And then that kind of transitioned into theater, which then transitioned into acting. But I did this from high school all the way through the fire department. So even when I was in the Marines, when I came home, I was in a dance company. When I was in corrections, I was still in my dance company. Then I transitioned to the fire department. I joined the theater company. And I just kept honing my skills, honing my skills. I started going to night classes, day classes. And slowly by slowly, I just built up this resume of work. but it wasn't like I just jumped up one day and said, let me be an actor. I had been pursuing my passion for the arts all throughout my life.
Mm. Yeah, no, I've heard that it's not an easy thing to get into, right? As well, it's really hard to.
I think it's I won't say it's hard. It was just I went a different route. Most people go to college and can
Mm,
just focus on acting and get a degree in drama and learn all of the theater and do all of that. But because I always had a job, because I had to take care of myself and I had nobody to lean on financially, I
mm,
had to have a job. So I didn't really get to go to college and immerse myself completely into a theater program. So I just took the a la carte type classes anywhere I could,
mm.
um, and it worked out. So I mean, I won't say it's. I definitely went a different route. I won't say it's a harder route. If you have the passion, you just find a way to make it work.
Yeah, no, I love that you say that, because some people think that to get to one place, there's just one way to get there, but there's definitely other routes that you can go, right? For sure. No, yeah, that's
Absolutely,
amazing. Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, I want to talk about the Blacklist, of course. It's I'm on season 4, episode 5 at the moment, and
Okay.
honestly, I've watched so many other series. I've watched Prison Break, Breaking Bad. I've watched all these huge ones. The Blacklist is definitely one of the best ones I've seen, hands
Thank you.
down. It's incredible. It's amazing,
Thank
and
you.
and the way you act in it as well is amazing. Like the accent you put on, is that like a tough thing to do?
No, it's interesting. Is funny thing is growing up, and I remember growing up, especially being Muslim, having a Muslim name, and being dark skinned, people used to always tease me and call me African.
Mm.
Back in the days, it was, I mean, and to some point now, it was the thing to do for kids to say, "Ooh, you African, get away, you dirty," or "Ooh," and make noises and imitate an African accent. So I got teased a lot about that. Um, and I think one day I got offered a role to play an African, and it just was in my DNA. Just it wasn't hard to do. And then over time, I just kept doing it, and it just became part of me. Like I can just go into my accent, and I can switch back and forth where it's almost effortless now. But it wasn't like it's hard for me to do other accents, but an African accent is in my blood. It's in my DNA. It was pretty easy for me to do.
Wow, that's amazing. What was it like? Like, did you know that you were gonna go and you wanted that role as Dembe, or like what was that whole process like to trying to get a role in the Blacklist?
Yeah, I never. I mean, my dream was to get on a TV show.
Mm,
Being a firefighter, I always told myself, because a lot of my friends at the time were like, "Hey, if you're serious about acting, everybody's going to LA. That's where the stars are. That's where." And I had a son, I had bills, I had responsibilities. I was like, I can't just leave up and go to LA. And then people accuse you of not really pursuing your dreams, or it's just a hobby for you. And it was serious for me, but I just didn't have the luxury of just getting up and leaving. I also have 4 younger brothers to look out after. So I just told myself, hey, I'm going to work a job. And after 20 years, I'll book a hit TV show. I told myself that.
wow, that's amazing.
Um, and in my 17th year, I booked Blacklist. Now, Blacklist wasn't, they wanted me to come audition on a Saturday in July. And for those who don't know anything about acting in the audition process, you never really get auditions on the weekends, right? Not for serious shows. And then two, they gave me no lines for the audition.
Wow.
So I was really tempted to blow it off. I was like, it's no lines. It's in July. It's on a weekend. Go there or hang out and have fun.
Wow.
And for some reason, I said, I'll go to it. I went to the audition. I got it. And I was excited about it. But I also had, I'm a snowboarder. So I had planned a trip to Argentina to go snowboarding. And I was like, okay, I'll do this shit. And they was like, oh, it's going to cut into your Argentina trip. And I was like, okay, I'll push my trip back a week. And then they were like, hey, you know what? We want you for another episode. And I was like, oh man, I can't go on I was really upset about my trip. I didn't care about it. That's how much I love snowboarding. And 2 episodes turned into 22. And then the next year they were like, hey, we want you to guest star again. And I did that. And then the next year they was like, they signed me to what they call series regular for, like a 6-year contract. And it just timed out that that was my 20th year in the fire department. Now, all my life, I had been working. So the idea of leave, most people even were looking at me crazy when I got on the TV show and I was still working at the firehouse. They're like, oh, you're on TV, you're a big star. Why don't you just quit? And I was like, no, that's, I want to get my 20th year. And then 2, I was kind of programmed to get a check every 2 weeks. If you've been getting a check every 2 weeks for 40 years or all your life, and I don't care if somebody says, oh, here's a TV show. I know I was old enough to understand that TV isn't guaranteed. The money isn't guaranteed. 1 minute you could be on, 1 minute you're off. So at one point, even at the 20th year mark, I was like, I don't know if I want to leave the fire department. I can do both. I'm doing both. I'll keep doing both. But then again, that angel tapped me up my shoulder and was like, hey, you prayed for this. You dreamed about this. You worked for this. The opportunity is presenting itself and now you're scared. Now we're going to walk through the door or you're going to, give in to these fears. So I had to, I had to realize that it was a blessing. It is something I prayed for. The law presented itself to me, and I closed the door in the fire department and stepped into TV full time.
Wow. When you were saying that story, what came to my mind? I was listening to an Audible book the other day, and they were talking about Jim Carrey, and they said Jim Carrey, he wrote himself a check for $10 million,
Yeah.
put it in his wallet, and he said in 3 years' time, I'm gonna get paid $10 million for a movie, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then he was in Dumb and Dumber, and they paid him the $10 million in 3 years. It was kind of like crazy because he told himself that's what's gonna happen, and it's
Yeah.
exactly like you told yourself in 20 years I'm gonna be on a TV
Yeah.
show. Wow.
Well, one of the things that helped me remove the anxiety from, because I know I had it, and I assume a lot of other actors and entertainers and artists have it, is waiting for that big break.
Mm.
When is the big break going to come? Why I can't get the big break? And I read this book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Outliers. And in this book, he talks about the 10,000 hour rule. So he basically says 10,000 hours equates to 10 years of work. And his belief is that if you put 10 years of hard work into anything, then you will see some type of success. And I remember in 2004 or 2003, I told myself, oh, wow, okay. If I go to school, if I go to class, if I just focus on training and do that for 10 years, then 10 years, 2014 or 15, I should have some type of success. And that's what I did. And when you look at it from that perspective, it removes the anxiety of waiting for your big break. It's like, okay, I need 10 years of work and then it'll happen. And that helped remove the anxiety. So I just focused on training and training. And in 2013, I got offered a job.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it's like you just got to be consistent, right? That's
Yeah,
the way to succeed for sure. You just got to be consistent at it. Yeah, no, that's
absolutely.
amazing. I, I gotta ask you this question because when I'm watching The Blacklist, one of my favorite characters, apart from you, of course, is Aram. I
Hmm.
think he's so funny. But
Hmm.
when you're around the cast, who would you say is the funniest?
Diego.
Diego.
Diego is as like Aram is funny in character, and his character is well written and gets these lovely lines, and he's a great actor, and he can just be
Mm.
really funny. But Diego is like really funny in person. Like he is just a really great guy to have around you and be around. He's a funny guy.
That's amazing. Yeah. I honestly like it's something that I don't usually like to binge watch anything,
Mhm.
but because obviously the lockdown, I normally at night times I go and do mixed martial arts, and because obviously lockdown I can't go. I've just been watching the Blacklist constantly, and every time my sister comes to my room, she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "You know what I'm doing. I'm watching the Blacklist. Leave me alone." But yeah, no, that's amazing. Is there anything else that you do? You mentioned you do snowboarding as well. Do you have like any other hobbies or anything like that?
Yeah, like I was always an adrenaline junkie. So when I was a lifeguard, I remember we used to have to search the lake. That gave me adrenaline. I used to race motorcycles, but I fell down too many times. I got hurt. And
Wow.
I think that's, when I stopped riding my motorcycle, that's when I kind of switched to snowboarding. And it
Mm,
gave me the same rush. And then at the same time, I also picked up golf. So I'm a golf addict now also.
nice,
So I
nice.
love being physically active. I love outdoor sports. Um, Snowboarding, it gives me that same peace and calm on top of a mountain. And
Mm,
I get that same peace and calm on a golf course and just seeing greens and grass. It's something healing about it for me. And it also gives me a physical activity to do. So those are my main two hobbies right now. I have one for the winter, one for the spring and summer, and it keeps me pretty busy year round.
nice, nice. And are you guys still filming the Black? Because I know there's like 8 seasons out at the moment, right? Are
Yeah,
you still?
we're still filming. Usually we start work in July, and it's 10 months of work. We'll finish the following year in April, but because of COVID this year, we started in October,
Mm,
and we'll finish uh, in June. So right now we work Monday through Friday, and we've been banging it out, and hopefully it'll be done in June.
nice, amazing. You know when you guys watch do you guys ever like just sit down together and watch the whole series together? Like how does that work when you're actually in the series yourself?
We watched. I want to say it was the first season. All of us went to Megan Boone's house. I don't think Diego was there. It was me, Mozan, Harry, and Amir.
Hmm.
We all watched the whatever year they had the Super Bowl. We were on the same channel as the Super Bowl. Um, we all watched it at Megan's house. And
No.
that's the only time I think we've all been together to watch an episode. Other than that, I think everybody's usually at home, with their families watching the show.
Right, so you guys watch it one by one as well. You don't watch it all at once, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I watch it. We watch it one by one because I think most of us are encouraged and some of us do it um, on our own. Like I like to tweet with the fans as I'm watching an episode.
that's
So we usually watch them when they come on. If we're not stuck at work, usually Friday nights, I'm texting or tweeting with the fans as I watch the episode.
that's brilliant. No, that's amazing. Yeah. Obviously the fans are, they're the huge fans of the show, right? And that's
Mhm.
brilliant to hear that you're interacting with them. So no, that's amazing. I gotta ask you as well, Hisham, just before I let you go, what would you tell your younger self if you could go back in time? I always ask this to all the guests I get on, and it's kind of interesting to hear the answers that they give.
What would I tell my younger self if I could go back in time? Um, I would tell myself that, um,
Put you
wow.
on
My younger, I was very insecure when I was younger,
Mm,
just about, when you don't have parents to tell you, hey, you did a good job, you're doing well, or to pick you up when you stumble. Um, you put on this tough exterior, but for me, if nobody's telling me I'm good, part of you feels you're not good.
Mm.
Um, but as I look back on not only my accomplishments, but just who I am as a person, I would go back in time and tell my younger self that you are more than um, um, you are good enough or better than anything that presents itself in your way.
Mm.
You're just capable of any and everything. And even though I attacked all of those things with that mindset because it was survive or die, I didn't feel it in my heart, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So if I would go back and tell my basically tell my younger self, you're dope, man. You're just dope.
Love that.
And don't be hard on yourself.
I know, I love that. No, that's amazing. Sorry, just one more question as well I wanted to ask you. Um, what are your goals at the moment? Have you like set yourself any goals for the future or anything like that?
Absolutely. The funny thing is, a lot of people who celebrate New Year's, I've always been. I don't want to. I don't. I never. I don't want to say look down on it, but the whole. What are your New Year's resolution? What is your New Year's goals? Like I've always been a person who's always thinking about, and maybe to a fault where I'm not present, but
Mm.
I'm always thinking about what's next, the next accomplishment, the next goal. So it's not like when New Year's comes around, I'm like, okay, this year I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, because I've already been thinking that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the only thing I would say is I did become a little more focused as far as like maybe 2 years ago. I said, you know what? I want 10 rental properties in 2 years. Um, and I told myself I want 10 rental properties and I want about $10,000 of passive income from my real estate portfolio.
Mm.
And last year I bought 3 homes. Um, and 2 years before that, I bought 2 homes. So I have 5 now. So my goal now is just to have like this real estate portfolio. And then after that, I said, hey, let me get into stocks. So July, I started learning the stock game. I mean, ultimately, the goal is just to be financially free,
Mm.
to have the freedom to do whatever I want. Um, so I don't have like I've never been a person to say, hey, next year I'm gonna do A, B, and C. My mind is always spinning and running, and
Mm.
right now it's on accumulating real estate. Um, and of course, in that is just providing for my family and
Mm.
my wife, and like just it's always especially as you get older, it becomes really, really not about you because you're gonna leave this earth, right? I'm
Yeah.
50 now, so it's like, eh, and not in a dreary negative way, but it really motivates you to say, hey, I want my kid or my son, my daughter, my wife, or their kids, I want them to be financially better or well off, and not just money wise, but financial literacy,
Mm.
then better off than I was, especially not having parents. Nobody taught me about money and credit and real estate, any of that.
Mm.
So my brain is just spinning on money, leaving stuff behind, leaving a legacy behind that they can build on and hand down to their families and children, um, and they not have, as with a little bit of, I don't want to use the word easy, but just a little more access than I had. So I don't know if that answers the question. I'm rambling. I
No, no.
just know my brain is always spinning when it comes to goals. So it's goals are being spit out every minute
I,
as far as what I'm trying to accomplish, what I'm trying to do. Like another thing I've become obsessed with is I collect art now.
oh,
So I
nice.
like collecting art because I like to get art that grows in value and it also speaks to me and tells a story about me, and I can hand that down to my kids. Or so I'm this. My brain's just always spinning. So I don't. I just don't sit back and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
next September I want this house," or next September I'm going to be take my kid to Disneyland. It's just a wheel that's always turning.
That's so funny you say that, honestly. I have some friends that say, oh, next month, like let's say for example it's Friday and they say next Monday I'm gonna start a diet. And I say to them, why can't you just start right now? Like what is stopping you, right? Like what's the difference by starting now and starting Monday? Like you need to start right now, like because the most likelihood you're not gonna start Monday, right?
I
Yes.
think one thing that stood out, I listen to a lot of my father's cook bars now.
Mm,
And I remember one thing that always stood out to me when he used to give his cook bars. He used to say, when the angel of death comes for you, you will not be able to pack a fingernail. And it always terrified me because it was like, you need to do whatever you need to do now.
mm, yeah.
Because one day you're not going to be able to do it. And you can't say tomorrow you will be. You might not wake up. And one of these mantras I came up with in the fire department was because, as a firefighter, we used to get a lot of calls between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. And we always get a call for someone unconscious. And the reason is because usually there's a large majority of people who fall asleep and don't wake up. Um, and after going years and years and years of going all these calls, I was like, wow. I just came up with this mantra, and I used to say, Harlem morning, you woke up breathing for a reason. And that was just a way of reminding me that you just can't take for granted that you wake your eyes up in the morning. It's so corny as it sounds,
Mm.
but and I don't know if it's me getting old, but it's just something you can't take for granted. So between my father saying that football about the angel of death coming for you, and seeing so many people who don't wake up in the morning, um, you just don't have the time to put stuff off. And of course, there's a fine line between, of course, you relax, you enjoy life. I'm not saying you can't go on a vacation and chill, but at the same time, that falls into it too. Why put your vacation off for 2 years when you can go tomorrow? A vacation doesn't have to be this big Disneyland thing. Vacation is just refreshing and resetting in your spirit and your soul. So when you look at it that way, I just try to take advantage of every minute and every second, whether it's work or relaxing and playing. I just gotta love life because one day it's gonna end.
Yeah, no, so true. And Muhammad Ali said something really interesting about this, about time as well. Muhammad Ali said that, let's say, for example, he said something like you travel to work. Let's say you're living up to 60 years old, right? So you travel to work maybe like 10 years of that 60 years because of the time it takes. You're working 40 years of your life, right? The time it takes to work. Um, you're eating, and like he just mentioned all of this, and then he's like, you only have like this much amount of time. I don't know exactly how much he said. I need to read it again, but it's kind of interesting. He said with that amount of time you have, that's when you can make that difference, and you need to take advantage of that because it's not a lot of time. Time is something that people think that we might have a lot of, but it's something that you don't really have a lot of. It goes real quickly. Next thing you know, like you blink and you're getting older and older. And no, it's definitely, you need to take advantage of that time, and you need to help out as much as you can as well, right? And just
Absolutely.
be a good person. Yeah, no, for sure. I
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I honestly, thank you so much, Hisham. I really respect your time. This is
Thank
gonna
you.
this is gonna make my experience of watching The Blacklist Even 100%. Yeah, no, what I'll do, guys, as well, I'll leave Hisham's social media down below. Go and check him out. Honestly, this guy is definitely uncommon. It's perfect fit for you because the podcast is called the Uncommon Mindset Podcast. So, no, thank you so much. I really appreciate it,
Thank you, brother.
and all the best for the future as well.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you.